Hi there. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Kelly Catalinas with Fairway Independent Mortgage in conjunction with Cindy Bishop Worldwide. And today we're bringing back Sarah Rubin. Sarah is our Mid-Atlantic Marketing Director. And you've heard her speak before on marketing to millennials. And we don't want to forget about Generation Z. They kind of get lumped in sometimes with the millennial generation, but there are very distinct differences. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sarah. There you go, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Like Kelly said, I am the Regional Marketing Director for the Mid-Atlantic. And today we are really going to dive into Gen Z and can they really be that different? So I get that question all the time. And if you were on a little bit early today, Kelly, Cindy, and myself were talking about kind of various experiences with Gen Z. And the short answer to this question is yes, they can really be that different. And so it's really important to understand kind of who they are, how they tick, and kind of what we all need to do to prepare for them really entering this housing market. There is no question about it. They are already here and they're here to stay. So unlike millennials, where almost everyone was kind of behind the ball in learning about communicating with them, it's really important that we're kind of ahead of this curve, because without that, we are going to miss out on a ton of business. So with that, we'll get started. All right, so who is Gen Z? Who are we even talking about in this presentation? So Gen Z are people born approximately from 1995 to 2006, meaning that they are just about 23 to 14 years old. And I put it with the older years first because we're really not talking about 14-year-olds. They're not buying homes, although what all our research is showing is that they might be more qualified than our 26-year-olds to buy homes, but they're not really who we're focusing on. We're really talking about kind of that 20 to 23-year-old age bracket, but they're coming, like I said, fast and furious into this housing market. So it's important to kind of understand who they are. It's also always important to remember these are gross generalizations based on research. Not every single member of this age group is going to act the exact same way, but you will likely see many of the same tendencies. And it's really important to remember that maybe someone was born in 1996 and are 24 and they are more like Gen Z than they are like a millennial. These numbers are all kind of fluid. It's just what's being used to kind of categorize and put a number on the generation. So approximately 42% of the world's population is under the age of 25, according to the World Economic Forum. So Gen Z has and will continue to influence every single thing we do. So there is a book out there. It is called Instabrain. It's by Sarah Weiss. And it is probably the most important book to read to understand this generation. But part of what she writes is that she was talking to her grandmother or her mother in their 70s, and they referred to their online tribe. They weren't talking about Facebook or Instagram. They were talking about Weight Watchers, but it's still the same premise. Gen Z has influenced everyone's language, everyone's thought process. This 70-year-old woman is now thinking about her friend group and her community as her online tribe. That didn't come from nowhere. It came from what is nearly half of the world's population at this point, influencing the way we think and alter and communicate. So what really is the difference between millennials and Gen Z? So millennials are dreamers. They like to think about what they could potentially achieve. They want to take these trips, these experiences. They value experience over action or material item. Gen Z is the complete opposite. They are doers. They don't want to talk about what they want one day. They want to do it now. They want to take the job that is going to get them to the place they want to be. They are going to negotiate their salaries. They are going to negotiate their benefits. They are thinking about what they can do today that will impact their future for the better. So again, unlike millennials, they're not thinking about it, they're doing it. So really, what are these people like? They're really hardworking. They are happy to spend as many hours as needed to do a job well. They want to succeed, and they really believe they deserve a voice at the table. So they started working at about 13 years old. And no, that doesn't mean they went to a restaurant and started waiting tables. It means they figured out how to monetize YouTube channels. They figured out how to help people in their homes. They've figured out how to use technology to make money, and they are starting really young. The average age of a Gen Zer for when they got their first savings account is 13 years old. They are really thinking about all of the hard work they need to do, and then they're doing it. So you are going to see a lot of burnout with this generation. They're overworked, they're overscheduled, and they're overtired, but they're okay with it because it's getting them what they want. They're incredibly entrepreneurial. So like I said, they've figured out how to monetize their YouTube channels. That doesn't just mean, they're not looking to just join a company to join a company. They're looking to really start something of their own. So aside from how we work with them, we can expect that they're actually going to join our industries, because real estate, mortgages, all of those types of things are entrepreneurial businesses. When you boil them down, you're in control of your own kind of business model in a lot of ways. So we can expect that we need to understand how to communicate with them, not just as clients, but as coworkers. And then they're really strong. And that doesn't mean that they're physically like the Hulk. It means that they really are strong-willed and strong-minded. So they can take criticism. They're not like millennials in the sense of, you need to really think about sugarcoating things. They really expect people to be straightforward, honest, and they don't mind someone saying, you know, this isn't correct. They want to fix it. They want to go back and do that hard work to make themselves better and stronger. And as I said, kind of as we talked about hardworking, they expect that their voices are listened to. They need that seat at the table. They realize that they have a lot of experience and a lot of different thought processes that are really valuable to companies as well as to interactions and purchases. So they don't want someone to approach them in terms of real estate and say, hey, here are 12 things you need to do. They want to have a conversation. They want to learn. They believe that they've earned that space at the table because they have really been learning since the day they could use a phone or a computer. So unlike previous generations that said, hey, mom or dad or friend or teacher, what is the answer to this problem? They actually go online to find the answers to their problems or their questions. And then they look at those people, mom, dad, friend, teacher, as friends, not as kind of these authoritative powers. So we actually are seeing, and we were talking about relationships with kids a little bit at the beginning, but we're seeing a lot of very close-knit relationships with Gen Z and their parents and their families. We're seeing multi-generational homes. We're seeing a lot of kind of really close-knit, not typical or stereotypical parent-child relationships. They are turning to those people as their support systems and their comfort and all of that, and then going to the internet to get their answers about what they should do. So very different than the millennials who were still going to kind of parents and teachers for answers and then checking them on the internet. They're just going to the internet, getting their answers and moving on. So they're a very, very different generation, but they're kind of an incredible generation because they're really, really smart and really willing to do whatever it takes to get a job done. They're the people that you're going to enjoy working with and not say, wow, this generation is difficult or challenging, like we hear a lot when people are talking about working with millennials. So what do you need to know? 85% of Gen Z find out about new products through social media. So if you are not on social media and you intend on continuing to be in the real estate industry working with younger generations, not just the older subset of generations, you need to be on social media. That does not mean that you can just be on your company's website. That will not work. You need to be on some platform to show that you really understand, but also just that you can be found. More than anything, you need to think about social media as Google. If someone types in your name, they need to be able to have a few places to choose from when they want to learn about who you are as a person, not just what you do for work. They're independent and resilient, so we talked about that quite a bit. They're good getting answers on their own, and they're fine taking your criticism as long as it's not just mean to be mean. They're really hungry. They want to learn. They want to understand. They want to grow. A lot of them have a lot of wealth goals. So they are working towards something that will allow them to do something else. So they do think about money. They do think about what they can purchase and products that they can kind of have to make their lives more fulfilled in their minds, but they are hungry to do whatever it takes to get there. Like I said, they believe they deserve a seat at the table. They are incredibly diverse. So we are seeing children and people who come from various different backgrounds, various different homes, things that all look a little bit different. And so they're really accepting. They don't look at the world and think that everything falls into one neat category. There is a tremendous amount of diversity in thought, background, ethnicity, religion, and race, and they're good with it. They love that, and they want everyone to really have that. They believe everyone deserves that equal shot and are fighting for it very, very hard. They're always looking for inspiration. So they're looking to kind of you and to the internet and to all different places to be inspired for their next move. But the inspiration, again, it's not where should I have my quarter life crisis? It's what should be my next step to be better, to do better. They are huge believers in curation. So the reason Pinterest and Instagram story highlights and the new Facebook layout and all of those things happen is because Gen Z needs things to be curated in categories. So they need to be able to click a highlight and see everything that you're posting as it pertains to real estate, and then something else as it pertains to your family. They need everything to really be organized like that web page so that they can keep their minds organized. They consume so much information at a rapid rate. So they are consistently multitasking. Their attention spans are really about 8 seconds, and that doesn't mean that you get 8 seconds to get their attention and then hold it. It means that you get 8 seconds to get their attention. So that holding it piece is the difference. If you can get their attention, you've got pretty much a long, long time of them focusing on you, but making sure they don't scroll on to the next thing. Curation is really important, and so is structure. They believe in personalization. They know that the internet has the ability to customize their journey. So you need to be thinking about what type of information is right for this client. It cannot be a generic first-time home buyer packet anymore. It needs to be something that has names on it, that is custom to the information they've given you about what they're looking for. It needs to really be that personalized journey, because technology at very large companies has shown them that it's possible, that you can say, I like these things, and all of a sudden, that's all you're seeing. It's the way cookies on the internet work. It's all of that kind of stuff. So it's just become their expectation. And I think more than anything, it's really important to remember that Gen Z's brains are just simply different. They were raised differently. They've been kind of molded and wired differently. So you cannot expect them to act like any generation previous. So, the easiest way to explain that is people have evolved to not have wisdom teeth. Their brains have evolved differently in that exact same fashion. So you need to be thinking, okay, I understand they're different. How do I communicate with them? What information, what product do I give them that will cater to the way they think? Again, this does not mean you need to change your business model. It means you need to change your communication strategy. So what do you need to do? you need to research or read. So I mentioned Instabrain earlier. I truly believe it is the #1 book everyone should be reading to understand this generation and working with them. You need to organize. So things cannot be kind of, here's a thing here, here's a thing there. Everything needs to be categorized and organized. You need to join. You need to be joining groups, conversations, all different things like that, so that you understand who these people are and you're talking to them and you're seeing how they interact with each other. You need to personalize, as I previously mentioned. So everything needs to be really personalized for the people you're working with, not just personalized for Gen Z as a whole, but as for individual clients. You need to adapt. So you need to be taking your materials and changing them slightly, taking your conversations and changing them slightly. You need to be willing to kind of alter your normal way of doing things to fit this generation. Really, it's altering your communication style. I'll say that over and over again. And then you need to measure. So you need to say, what is working? What is making Gen Z do business with me? And then repeat it over and over and over again. So you need to be seeing what social media posts are working, what printed out materials are working, what conversation topics are working, and then just replicate it with that personalization. So again, research, organize, join, personalize, adapt, and measure. It's really important that you're thinking about how you can incorporate those things into your business. So the thing about Gen Z, and we talked about millennials being fiercely loyal, Gen Z is the same in that sense. So once they love you, you need to keep that love affair going, because while they are, once they do love you, they are loyal, getting their loyalty is even harder than getting millennials loyalty. So they will not accept you posting the same thing on Facebook and Instagram. They need you to be consistently putting things out there for them to fall in love with. And so that's information, that reviews, it's all different materials, but it's not entertainment. And what I personally find very interesting about this generation is, unlike any generation previous, they feel really guilty when they're doing things only for entertainment. So they don't want to just watch a YouTube video to be entertained. They want to watch a YouTube video to learn something. So you need to be consistently putting out content that is teaching our Gen Z viewers things, and that will make them continue to fall in love with who you are and what you're offering. So you could be teaching them about who you are. So this is my favorite pastime, this is my favorite place, this is, you know, my family, whatever you're willing to put out there. But the more information and content you put out there, the more that they are going to fall in love with you and be loyal to you. I would say that that the biggest thing here is that content is queen. That is content is going to be the thing that you need to remember. That is your royalty. What you're putting out there, that is the most important thing. So you need to remember that. You can't just expect that you can put an article out and that's going to satisfy what a Gen Zer needs. They need true content. They need things that you're thinking about and being really specific in what you're giving them. So how does all of this relate to real estate? Why does this matter to any of you? Well, a new report from TransUnion shows that the number of Gen Z consumers who took out a mortgage more than doubled from 2018 to 2019. So we're not talking about a generation that's just thinking about joining, they're here. The report shows that 14 million Gen Z consumers were carrying a credit balance of some kind in the second quarter of 2019, up 3 million from 2018. And the largest increase by percentage is among Gen Z consumers who took out a mortgage. So no, they're not, yes, they are getting credit cards, but that's not the primary thing. They are really starting to buy homes. This credit piece is really important to them. According to the report, again, the number of Gen Z consumers with a mortgage rose by 112% from the second quarter of 2018 to the second quarter of 2019, which is 150,000 to 319,000. So really, we are talking about a generation who has the wealth, who has the savings, and has the desire. They should be making your jobs easier, not harder. Yes, some of the upfront work of adaptation or adaptation rather, and education might be a lot of work, but in general, they should be making your lives easier. The sell is going to be a lot less with this generation. So again, Gen Z as a population, they account for $830 billion per year in the US, 7% of total consumer spending. So that is just what they're spending. The average weekly allowance for a Gen Zer, because yes, they are still getting allowances, the youngest part of this generation is 14 years old, is $16.90, which equals $44 billion in direct annual buying power. And when you include what others spend on Gen Zers, so their parents, their grandparents, their friends, their family, that buying power skyrockets to $255 billion. And when you account for household spending that's been impacted by Gen Z and what they're purchasing, that increases to over $655 billion a year. So all of that is to say these people have money. They want to spend it, and they're using their influence on others, and that's influencing how they spend their money. So discounting this generation would be a huge mistake. 25% of Gen Zers say they would rather save for the future than spend money they don't have, and 22% say they don't spend on unnecessary things. So when we're talking about looking at credit, this generation, these kids really have some of the best credit we can expect to see. They are not financing trips to Europe on credit cards and worrying about paying for it later. They are spending only the money they have at a rate in which they can afford. So it's really, really important to recognize, again, that this generation should be making everyone's jobs easier, because we're not talking about, fixing some of that millennial tendency where it was experience over thing, and experience didn't matter how much it cost, they just wanted to do it. We don't have to worry about any of that for the most part. They do prefer in-person versus online. So I really couldn't believe this when I was reading about it. So I took a survey. I am an advisor for a whole bunch of Gen Zers, and the stat that I was reading was that people in this generation would rather shop for clothing in person than online. And to me, that seemed completely crazy. I am the first to admit I do fall into the millennial category. But I asked these 100 women, is this true? Do you guys, who would prefer to shop for something online, and who would rather go in person? And 99% of them raised their hand for that they would rather go in person. So for all of you, this means they're going to want to sit down and talk to you. They're going to want to meet you. They're going to want to go to open houses, do in-person tours. And of course, all of this generalization is post-COVID conversation, because yes, you might not be able to do all of these things in person right now. And Gen Z understands that. It may shift their thinking slightly, but in general, pre-COVID and post-COVID, they really have wanted to function in person versus online. And directly unlike millennials, they value things versus experiences. They want to buy a home, they want to buy a car, they want to buy, they don't want to just experience. So before we jump into how do I create loyalty, I see a few questions coming in. Okay, so where do you find them? That's a really, really good question. So the first is you find them online. We are seeing that people are going with the first realtor they talk to, as long as you're giving them information in this generation. So you really need to be promoting your business using social media. They will find you. They do listen to referrals, so you need to be asking people for that referral. And really though, the biggest places you need to be advertising yourself and your brand on social media. That is where they are looking. They are looking to be educated via the platforms they're already on. And then once they're really kind of serious, they will start putting in online inquiries. And I recently had someone ask me a question about, you know, I got this online inquiry and I went to call them and they didn't want me to call them. They just wanted me to email them. Like, is that weird? No, that's not weird. They're used to functioning strictly online right now. So while they want to meet you in person and do all those things in person, it's really important to recognize that they might not want to talk to you on the phone right away. So having forms online that they can fill out to contact you, telling people to direct message you or to comment on a photo or anything like that, that's really how you're going to find them. It's going to be a lot of direct to consumer online advertising. That doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of money. It just means that you have to be really active. Jane, thank you. That's it's a reassuring point that you're seeing this happen in real life. And then, yeah, so it's a good question. Facebook or Instagram, where are they looking on social media? Absolutely Instagram. They view Facebook as a place to actually expand their own businesses and target older generations. They are not on Facebook for their own information gathering. They are on Instagram and YouTube. YouTube is the largest platform I would focus on. Video is incredibly powerful. So if you are thinking about what you can do to get to these clients, you can be posting really actively on Instagram and different content really actively on YouTube. Those two channels will definitely put you in front of the Gen Z audience. Thank you for those questions. Those were great questions. How do you create loyalty with this generation? So you need to be thinking about the customer experience. They would rather something take a little bit longer and be perfect than be rushed through with slight mistakes. So you need to be thinking about, how can I make this a 5-star experience, if at all possible? They recognize mistakes happen. They don't expect you to be perfect, but they do expect a smooth customer experience. Things need to align with values. So if you are saying you believe in one thing, you better show it throughout the whole process. Things need to really line up for them. It needs to be really, really organized. Speed and ease. So speed, while not as important to them, always is going to be a factor, but ease is the most important part. So they expect that if you're providing them with technology to do something, that technology works. One of the most powerful quotes I've ever heard actually came from the CMO of a large real estate company. And he said, actually the CTO, and he said, technology is only thought of as technology when it breaks. So we don't recognize that something is technology if it's working well. Zoom is just Zoom if it's working well. It's technology when my audio goes out or my video goes out and then I'm annoyed at my technology. So they just expect that everything you're providing them with works and is easy to use. It's user friendly. They do look for recommendations and they don't want them just at the end. They don't want to provide them just at the end. They look for it along every step. So you do want to make it your business practice to ask for reviews throughout your process, not again, just at the end. They're not as likely to complete it. Ask how the application process was, ask how the bidding process was, ask about all of those various pieces, and then put those recommendations out there because they do look for them. Be transparent. If something's going wrong, tell them. If you have nothing to tell them you have nothing to tell them. You need to be open and transparent, not just open and honest. And then education is probably the most important thing here. The more education you can give them, the more information you can give them, the better you will be and the more loyal they will be to you. So here is kind of a breakdown for you. So as I mentioned, you cannot post the same content on every platform, and you need to understand what all of these platforms are best used for. So Instagram, it's random inspiration, it's aspirational slice of life, and it's edited. They know you have the ability to edit what you're putting out there. Pinterest is simply inspiration, but in a specific area. So car, family, all of those things, it's just inspiration. There's no real education there. YouTube, it's how-tos, DIY, and learning something. So YouTube is their place, their hub of education. Snapchat, it's for chatting with their friends for fun, behind the scenes footage, and raw. They think of it similarly to Instagram, but it's not edited, and they do not expect you to be there. TikTok, it's entertainment and DIY. Right now, I do not believe realtors need to be on TikTok. It is definitely more of an entertainment platform, and like, how do I do the perfect eyeliner? We're seeing a lot of like beauty videos and things of that sort, not as much how do I buy a home. Twitter, it's for news and professional announcements. So really, people are going there to see what is happening in the world. And then if you have a professional announcement, so going live with this person on my Facebook page at 10, that is what they're looking at Twitter for. They're not expecting you to go live on Twitter. Google, it's for looking up specific facts, especially as they pertain to homework. It's not really as much about looking you up anymore. It's just likely their vehicle to get to all of the other social media platforms. Text message, it's for chatting with friends when important or timely. So they're not necessarily expecting that you're going to text them. They really look at it as like an immediate need a response and a more friends conversation. GroupMe, it's for group chatting, mainly among college students and only in the United States. Reddit is for gaming and long discussion. They are using Reddit at a crazy fast pace because this generation is super gamers, and so they're going on to have conversations about that. Again, not super important in real estate, but important to understand what they expect from that platform. And then Facebook, they view as a way to reach their parents and where their parents are. So really, again, if you're focusing on reaching this generation, where should you go? Instagram and YouTube. That does not mean you should let your Facebook page fall. That is a huge, huge thing for almost every other generation. So Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, that's kind of your holy grail of social media. So yes, I believe Cindy will be sending this out after the presentation. So really, that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for your time today. If you have any questions, please pop them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. It is, I know, a lot of information, and they're very different in terms of their characteristics and how they act. I do see a couple of chats coming in. Oh, you are very welcome. And I hope you found today beneficial. And if you have questions, you can always email them or send them along to Cindy and she'll get them to me.
Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sarah. If we're done, I'm going to go now. Thank you so much. I made a lot of notes.
Bye, Mike.
I'll have Kelly send the link for the video out to everybody once we render it, because I think this is just a lot of good information. I mean, yeah, she's terrific. In fact, just a little secret,